will be Ana Sanchez. Ana is from Deltares, the Netherlands, and will present the following presentation: an epic response, innovative governance for flood and drought management. And I will share my screen in a minute to get the presentation up.
Thank you very much, Albert. So my name is Ana Nunez. I'm a Senior Water Resources Management Specialist in Deltares. And thank you so much for your attention. I think today I would like to bring, perhaps at the end of the presentation, two new concepts in the conversation today, which are governance and drought. So, and I would like to present to you the main message of a report that was co-authored by the World Bank and Deltares and was published in June this year, and is titled An Epic Response, Innovative Governance for Flood and Drought Risk Management. So the report is based in 4 case studies and extensive literature review, and it has produced what is possibly the most comprehensive compendium of flood and drought policies and programs that currently exist in the literature. So the report helps bring together the flood and the drought communities by using the lens of hydrochromatic risk management. And the report focuses on the role of national government agencies. One, because this is normally the clients that the World Bank and Deltares have, but also because we believe that national government agencies must take a leadership role in facilitating a whole of society approach for flood and drought management. And this whole of society approach includes the local government, the private sector, civil society, the scientific community, individual households, but also, and most importantly, marginalized communities. So the report is more than 200 pages long, and I only have a few minutes here to touch upon the main highlights. So let me just go right to the main message here. So there are a lot of government agencies working in flood and drought management. We have water resources management, we have disaster risk management, agriculture, environment, hydromet agencies. They all have very important roles to play, and they all have to fulfill the mandates. However, this is not enough, and they have to move beyond their mandates and they have to find innovative ways to collaborate and produce what we call a joined up government's response. This is not easy, but we believe it's absolutely necessary to have this sort of epic response to tackle one of the most important challenges of our times, which is floods and droughts. Next one, please. Okay. So the term hydrochromatic risk management is probably not foreign to most of you. It basically looks at climate and hydrology, and that helps frame our floods and drought risk management. So there are many different types of hydrochromatic zones around the world: hot deserts, tropical monsoons and savannas, Mediterranean, the humid subtropical. And each of these zones have their own unique set of floods and droughts, but they always have both. And what believe that the report utilize general principles that could be applied to all of them. Next one, please. So I would like to echo and start perhaps with on a positive note. So we believe that hydrochromatic hazards do not have to become disasters if we proactively manage the risks. So now many countries are perhaps not doing a very good job at this, as the economic and social cost of hydrochromatic extreme events are staggering, continue to be staggering. So what we are hoping that this report does is that it provides this framework, this epic response framework, to comprehensively and systematically cover all the different dimensions that are necessary to confront these challenges. Next, please. So as I mentioned before, there are different agencies working in hydrochromatic risk management. So the report goes over the mandate of each of these agencies, and it also identifies ways where they can collaborate with each other. So we look at hydromet agencies, water resources management agencies, disaster risk management agencies, agriculture, and environment. Again, the key message here is that these agencies need to fulfill their mandate, and they need to do that efficiently, but they need to go beyond this, and they need to collaborate to create a joint government effort to achieve an epic response. Next, please. So what is this epic response? So the epic response consists in 12 different program areas, and each program interacts synergistically and in complex ways, but generally in a downward cascading manner to ultimately influence what are the final economic, social, and environmental impacts of any hydrochromatic event. So let me walk you through some of them. Next, please. So at the top, we have the enabling programs, and of course, they are headed by the national legal framework, which authorizes the programs, assigns implemented agencies, and most importantly, finance these programs. Now, the agencies that carried out these mandates, they need their own program for facilitating a whole of society approach because the government cannot do it all alone. So they need to tap and bring along the private sector, the local governments, civil society, the scientific community, and most importantly, marginalized communities who are often do not fully beneficiate from these programs, but yet they are the hardest hit and the slower to recover. Now, hydromech services are indispensable for almost every program in the EPIC response framework. So that's why they belong to the enabling environment. Next, please. Now, if we want to move from a reactive to a proactive approach, almost by definition, we need to have a planning process for flood and drought risk mitigation, as well as contingency planning. And the report looks deeply at many types of planning, which are shown in the next slide. So let me highlight perhaps two main points. First is that for flood and drought planning is almost always embedded in a larger planning process. So let me give you two examples. Flood and drought mitigation and contingency planning normally needs to happen at the basin level. So that's why it comes handy when it happens within the framework of a basin planning exercise, where it's not only looked into a variety of issues of integrated water resources management, but also looks at floods and droughts. For urban flood management planning, this is almost always part of urban development plans. The second message that I wanted to leave with you today is that planning needs to take place within a nested geographical context. To give you an example, so if you are a water utility or you're an irrigation service provider and you are developing your flood mitigation and contingency plan, you have to take a look at the river basin context, and your plan should mesh within the broader river basin planning. Next, please. So planning helps inform investment programs, and we look at investment programs in two main areas: in healthy watersheds and water resources infrastructure. So we think of healthy watersheds as the forests, floodplains, wetlands, and coastal barriers that provide essential ecosystem services to communities, including flood and drought management. So we often refer to these as green infrastructure. Now, water resources infrastructure are generally these person-made assets such as dams and river embankments, and we often refer to them as gray infrastructure. So the report defends that the combination of green and gray infrastructure really is the next generation of infrastructure, and will be fundamental to the management of flood and droughts combined. Next, please. So probably the best way that we have to manage floods and droughts is to control the way that we use water and the way that we use land. For example, for drought mitigation, having a dynamic water allocation system is indispensable for transferring water to lower value users to higher value users. And it's also very important during a drought to manage strategically groundwater, as is normally one of the few resources that are left in a context of drought. For floods, and I believe I'm probably preaching to the choir here, the best tool that we have in our toolbox is floodplain management, and that's why all this planning is important. Next, please. So all these programs that I mentioned before just help to manage and minimize the risk, but of course it doesn't take it away. So when an extreme risk event hits, whether it's a flood or a drought, we need to have programs in place so we can monitor and respond and recover from extreme events. And very importantly, what we need is to learn from each experience so we can systematically improve our hydrochromatic risk management systems, and we also can build back better. And Derek gave before a beautiful example of how this works in practice when he talked about the tabletop application in Texas and New York. Finally, disaster risk finances is very important for funding these response and recovery efforts. And this normally includes developing a multi-layered disaster risk financing strategy that is tailored to a country's unique risk profile. Next, please. So I know this is dense, so just to summarize, the EPIC response framework consists of these 12 different program areas. They interact synergistically and in complex ways, but generally in a downward cascading manner, and they ultimately determine the final economic, social, and environmental impact of extreme events. Next, please. So now, we're not naive, and we know that developing an EPIC response is an evolutionary and a continuous process, especially in the era of climate change. And it very much depends on a country's level of economic development, as well as the quality of its governance systems. So to address this issue, we developed what we call the generic development tables in the report. So remember how we talked before about these 12 different program areas? Underneath these 12 program areas, we have a look at 40 different programs that are involved in flood and drought management, and they are described in the report. So within the description, it includes this development table. And what we hope is that this will allow countries to examine each program and compare it with the development table and see what is the natural next steps in their evolutionary process, as well as what is the end goal. So, one of the key message again of the report is that we need to work together to create a joint government approach to flood and drought risk management. So one of the key recommendations of the report is that national governments should have periodic interlocking national strategic plans for water resources management, for disaster risk management, and for drought. So now these plans are different from the plans that we discussed before at the basin level, where we're discussing investments. These are plans that include a sector vision, the sector performance and propose improvements, which is it's fundamental for this evolutionary improvement. So next, please. Thank you. So yeah, I hate to be the last person between you and the end of this session, so I'll just keep it short. But just want to point you to the products that we develop. We have a main report. This is the 200 pages compendium of policies and programs. It's actually quite interactive, so it clicks in different places within the report, and you can use it as a reference if you are curious about the different programs or how they interact with each other. If you only have an hour, I invite you to read the executive summary. And if you only have 5 minutes, please read the brochure. Just want to give you the heads up that the World Bank and Deltares are working on a follow-up operation where we are developing an assessment tool that hope we help clients to assess the status of the hydrochromatic risk management systems and discern a roadmap for strengthening them. And just want to close out, next please, with just a shout out of all the people that are participating in the writing and the production of the report. And here you have a snapshot of them. Thank you.